have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to a Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195 Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Result. We look glad to your participation in the show. We encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized. And when you get on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. You can also follow us, our live video stream on our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio, on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Thank you all again for joining us. Your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. Tonight, Conrad Naya Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio. Good evening to Mr. Stanley, and to everyone who is in tune to the program. People here in the Federation, my friends in Connecticut. Special good evening to Osborne Liebert, who was here quite recently. Was happy to see you. Webbo, we are post the federal election, and still pre the local election, Webbo. Of course, it's been a political turf that can be described as quite turbulent. At the moment, things are settling down pretty nice. It feels pretty fresh. And Webbo, we again continue this journey to sensitize the people and to ask for their full participation in the upcoming election. We realize in the federal election, the voter turnout was somewhere around 40-something percent, I find, for the local election. I'm asking that the people come out and participate, because I think it's a crucial time in our history. It's almost like this decision time for our island. And so I'm just encouraging the people to come out. Webbo, once again, I'm happy to be here discussing the issues that are affecting the people. And I hope when we leave tonight, we can find some solution or bring some clarity to some of the very obfuscated issues that confront us. Webbo, thank you.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly the gracious people of Nevis. Those who listen to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin, YouTube and Facebook, as the case might be. Well, it's an obligation, as I have often referred to it, to be here and to disseminate thoughtful and forceful information to our people with some degree of clarity. At the same time, I must put this little quote in: begin nothing before first considering what the end will be. And this is with reference to the election that was held on Friday, 5th August. At the same time, that was the beginning of something mammoth with reference to the vanquish of the other parties in St. Kitts by the Labour Party. And I must say at the outset, I respect all my leaders, even though sometimes we have to remind them of certain things that they have said, which may not be as wanting to be brought back in memory to them. But sometimes, as I do respect them, I have to remind them of things that they might have said that, again, wasn't pretty. Webbo. Well, of course, let me go on the election is over, and the task, or the mammoth task, of governance has commenced. And in that regard, we are hoping that we, the people, we, the governed, would be given the opportunity to have good governance, fair, right, and proper leadership wherever it may. And in this regard, I'm looking forward to a real good governance, governing by the Labour Party, because they now hold the majority. They have begun this, which means that they are obligated to serving not the party people, party supporters, but also the entire country, including Nevis. Sometimes they might look at it that Nevis is not a part of the country when it comes to certain things that are due to this side of the aisle, or this side of the nation. At the same time, we must hold their feet to the fire. Fortunately, let me go out and say congratulations to Mr. Richards, Dr. Harris, Dr. Douglas, Congress Maynard, the Honorable Congress Maynard, all honorables, Duggins, Prime Minister Joe, Dr. Hanley, who is my cousin, Henderson, Brantley, the Honorable Mark Brantley, the Honorable Eric Hivelin, and the Honorable Alexis Jeffers. Hard-fought battle, and ultimately, those who, in fact, hung in there, defended well, they are able to win the prize of being re-elected to their seats in the new dispensation. However, again, the hard task of governance has just begun, and we will see exactly how they govern. But we must hold their feet to the fire with reference to policies that are pertinent to the well-being of all the men, women, and children within our nation, including those who came as visitors and who came to stay with us. And so we are at a crossroads of expecting right leadership, good governance from those who are at the helm. Again, congratulations to the Labour Party for having won 6 seats, and congratulations to all the other winners. Webbo.
As we all know, the Labour Party is a political party that is historically not well supported by Nevisians. Historically, I think we had a lot of rancor with the Labour Party. But nothing is too bad to improve on, I suppose. And as Mr. Stanley said, there's that expectations that the Labour Party would do what is expected of a new government, even when it's not new anymore. Going forward, we expect that the Labour Party would abide by the Constitution and do what is expected of the government of a Twin Island Federation. The issues that Nevis had, I suppose, still continue. Just asking to be counted, just asking to be an equal partner in the Federation, just wanting to get our fair share, what is due to us constitutionally, and even outside the Constitution, any arrangement that is made. We expect that kind of respect, and we, I'm sure, are quite willing to give that respect to the government of St. Kitts Nevis, the Labour Party. But I must say, the issues of Nevis cannot be forgotten. And we expect a different approach from the new Prime Minister. We all know about the historical relationship we had just quite recently with the former Prime Minister, the former leader of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. That is in the past. There's a new leader now, and there's higher expectation. I don't think we should continue to go back and continue along that path of confrontation at this point. Not because we are not a part of the government, but simply because we would like to extend our hand to establish good relations, and truly good relations. I thought the previous federal administration was made up of relationships that was not really true, and there was not much respect. There was all kind of reason why we are coming together to do this. Mainly, it was said, to get rid of Prime Minister Douglas back then. And that brought on a lot of different forces. Some people even claimed they were half from Nevis, Chikwara, and we became so important. I'm not sure if this relationship should be based on any other thing than respect for each other, respecting the humanity that exists across the board as intelligent people, as people who can work together for the goodness of both islands, I suppose. But in the midst of all this, the leaders of Nevis should never forget that utmost task of preparing Nevis to be a wholesome country that the people of Nevis can feel like they are here in an island which they can depend on for health reasons, for entertainment reasons, for all the reasons that make human life worthwhile. I know it can never be sufficient or enough, but we know when we can say, well, we're feeling better. We doesn't have to constantly run over to St. Kitts, constantly seek and ask for help, constantly feel embarrassed, constantly asking for what is ours. I think we can build a better relationship. This is an opportune time to do that. Not a relationship based on money owing or what is expected with the financial aspect or arrangement, but a relationship that is based on true respect. I don't think that was established in the last administration. It was one that came together for all types of reasons, and we see what happened in the end. Now, here in Nevis, the CCM won 3 seats. I congratulate those who won their seats. And for those who do not win, I also congratulate them and would like to encourage them going forward. I think they played an absolute good role in the democratic process, and they are to be commended because the NRP had gained some grounds with their new membership. It was 3 new faces, and when that happens and you gain ground, you must respect that fact. And so, because we're all in this thing together, we're all fighting for Nevis, and now we got to deal with a new government in St. Kitts. And so, wouldn't it be better if we have a sense of unity? Not to say that we are going to be united going down to, but united for our own purpose here in Nevis, united for the cause of Nevis, united for the betterment of Nevis. Not in a sense that we won't have 2 political parties, but there's respect, and when we need to talk for the betterment of Nevis, we can talk for the betterment of Nevis. This rancor have been destroying Nevis, and the political machinery in Sinkis have been totally geared towards that at times, to divide the people of Nevis and rule the people of Nevis and abuse the people of Nevis. And so we got a great task on our hand to heal these wounds amongst ourselves and realize that we are fighting for the same thing, and also to realize that we are Nevisians. And this personal attack on each other is outside the realms of establishing good debates in politics. That's what it needs in Nevis, because when I listen, both sides have good ideas. But we have failed to come together and see any of these ideas become to some kind of fusion. And so we suffer. It's an opportune time in Nevis to really do better for ourselves and to establish a good and firm and respectful relationship across the water. I find that we, Nevis, have lost in this election, and it's a hard one as far as I check. A lot of people probably don't see it this way, but I feel like we were part of a federal arrangement, a federal government, and now we may find ourselves on the opposition. It's like we have lost, but we probably got to take that and spin it around to our benefit, not by really begging, but really establishing good relationship with the federal government in St. Kitts. I believe this is a great opportunity to do that, and it's worth trying. And so, without any further ado, I believe that we should reach out and try to establish such relationship. Nevis still has something to do. The political leaders of Nevis still have to respect and still have to have a conversation with the people of Nevis about the fact that Nevisians, throughout the many years and up to today, the majority of us seek political separation from St. Kitts. It is not fair. It is quite frustrating that the majority of us here in Nevis would like to achieve that, but the political leaders that we have seems to do not want to talk about that. I don't know what they're afraid. I mean, if they feel like it's an impossible task, they can come and give reasons why it is not the appropriate time, or it would never be the appropriate time. But this thing hangs like a ripe fruit over the head of Nevis people that they want to pick. They want to pick. And the leaders seems to don't want to bring this issue to the table. I don't know if we feel very secure not talking about it, because we can lean on the Sinkis part of the government. But regardless of what, secession is not really a hide-up issue. Secession is something that can be achieved even when there is good relationship with Sinkis, because it's almost like human endeavor where you go to a certain extent in life and you want to chart your own course. You want to be a true leader. You don't want to be overshadowed. You want to chart your own destiny. That is quite understandable, but there's a lot of things need to talk about as it relates to this. Now, the leaders in Nevis can get up and say, look, let's forget about that. No one talk about it. That would not kill the issue. It is a burning desire that's been going through decades and generation and generation and generation. And let me say, this is one thing that this result have reminded me of, is that the power is with the people. Doesn't matter how much money people have, too much money, doesn't matter what, the power is with the people. And when the people want something to happen, they shall not be denied. Otherwise, somehow, something gonna have to give. The power is with the people, and this last election has proved it very much. Democracy is alive in St. Kitts Nevis, and of course, it's a beautiful process. We have a great democracy here, and why can't we just live and get along and everybody feel, well, it probably doesn't get to that point where everybody feel totally satisfied, but at least we can see a more harmonious existence between both islands, regardless if we want a good into secession or not, or we want to stay within the federation. These islands are too close for we to have rank of the people, one people, and it's the political aspect of it that is causing the problem. If you cannot figure it out, well, maybe you should give up your seat and let somebody who think they can figure it out.
Again, let me go on to say that begin nothing before first considering what the end will be. And my thing regarding this quote is to have asked, since the election is over, how come these two leaders, the Governor General and Prime Minister Harris, former Prime Minister Harris, couldn't see where this was heading? The thing is that the late Ronald Reagan consulted with the astrologers, consulted with astrology, looked at the heavenly bodies, counted the stars, and I would believe he would have been successful in reading the tea leaves among the stars with reference to governance. Now, the Governor General, in my view, who I believe was a founder of the People's Action Movement, failed to see the train wreck that would have occurred with reference to the PAM, and ultimately he gave Harris, the former Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, the go-ahead to fire 6 at the same time. He had only himself and 1 elected minister. It was somewhat political blindness on the part of both of them, not to have seen what the end result would be as we now can understand it in its fullness. The thing is that this was a political blunder on the part of both of these two leaders, the Governor General and former Prime Minister Harris, not to have seen this train wreck coming. As a result, Dr. Harris felt he had all the power in his hands, and this power, political power, economic power, social power, blew up like a powder keg and took him down from the pinnacle where he was. You having the levels of government with all this power and didn't figure out as how to utilize it wisely, and ultimately the whole thing just vanished almost in the twinkle of an eye. Why? Because they failed to calculate, they failed to negotiate, they failed to associate, and ultimately this enormous amount of power, again political, economic, social, just evaporated overnight. The PAM has been reduced to only one seat. The Governor General was part of PAM. He should have seen this coming. At the same time, the remnants of the seat of Mr. Heiliger, some 27 years ago, when the Labour Party swept to victory, I think at the time, would have gained 8 seats and vanquished the others. They were able to build from there in the next dispensation. Now they're right back to square one, having only one seat, with a reduced electorate in that same constituency of Richards. Dr. Harris's seat has been retained, but with a lower majority, with a smaller majority. And in my view, this was political blindness. These are veteran politicians, not the Governor General in the true sense of the word, but Harris and Richards. Where does PAM go from here? It will take a Herculean task to bring PAM back to where it was in the last dispensation, having 4 seats. In my view, Dr. Harris has squandered political capital based on political blindness. Had he listened to the Honorable Mark Brantley, he could have sailed through his 2 terms and then follow the dictates of the Charlestown Accord and turn the helm over to somebody else. And he would have looked very good in terms of his legacy for having successfully led St. Kitts and Nevis for 10 years, because the country did very well under his leadership. I repeat, the country did very well under his leadership with reference to economic progress. In hindsight, the 7 years of political progress was good also, although there were rumblings, undercurrents within the administration. But he could have held on. But again, not understanding the enormous power at his fingertips that he controlled, he actually squandered the opportunity for going down in history as a good leader and possibly a great leader. But the love of money, the love of power, was his demise. Now, again, you look at the heavenly bodies and you count the stars. They give you some guidance. Did he ever attempt to go down that route of reading the astrological instruments? Maybe not. But great leaders, King Nebuchadnezzar, had astrologers interpreted certain crystal ball occurrences. Again, the late Ronald Reagan turned to astrology for help in guiding the great United States through that turbulent time with the Soviet Union. And ultimately, he prevailed, and history would reveal that the great Ronald Reagan was a good leader of his country. Well, the demise of the People's Action Movement as its current state must be laid at the footstep or at the doorstep of the Governor General and the former Prime Minister Harris. The Labour Party has been victorious based on foresight, leadership of the Honourable Denzil Douglas. Even though he's no longer Prime Minister, he still wields a tremendous amount of power in the Labour Party. I think it's Nevis Labour Party. And I hope that he would be influential enough to harness the human resource, bring together, tap into the human resource of the Honourable Mark Brantley. Although Congress Maynard has been given the Foreign Ministry as a portfolio, not only he should reach out and to tap into the human resource of the Honourable Mark Brantley, who is the former.
You get real, man. It's good.
So I'm saying my recommendation is to split that portfolio. Go back into your meetings and split the portfolio of the Foreign Ministry and bring the Honourable Mark Brantley on board. If you don't want to bring the other two ministers, they can operate without portfolio. Bring them in also and strengthen the Labour Party. I think it's Nevis Labour Party. But we need to have a steady hand that guided the Foreign Ministry ship of state to its current plateau, which was the engine of growth, economic engine of growth for our nation. And hence, his, as a human resource, his ability, based on what he did in the last dispensation of Parliament, spells volumes. And I am saying that man is a master of systems, and they could tweak the system of the Foreign Ministry, tweak it a little. Congress Maynard is a good man. He got plenty votes. But he's a rookie. Under the steady hand of the Honorable Mark Brantley. Bring him in. Give him a little seat in your cabinet. And allow him to guide the ship of state onto the next level or higher plateau with reference to that mint of the CBI. You can't leave human resource like this untapped, underutilized. And in this regard, my appeal to the Labour Party, I think it's Nevis Labour Party, to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the fold of the Labour Party. They'll still carry their label as the CCM, but do not allow great productive human resource such as the Honorable Mark Brantley to go untapped, underutilized, and ultimately we would have lost ground for the non-use of this human resource. I have more to say.
Very interesting, Mr. Stanley. You're taking me where I never expected you would have taken me. You're asking the Labour Party to incorporate the three CCM candidates that were successful in the federal election, to incorporate them in the...
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Their name is Mark Brantley. Eric Evelyn.
Quite so.
And the Honorable
Alexis Jeffers.
There are a lot of people who don't know those names you're talking about, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and all that.
Those are biblical names.
Yeah, but sometimes we should keep it quite simple, in a sense, you know, so the people can understand what you're saying. You're asking the Labour Party to take them to be a part of the cabinet. That is something that I never expect to hear, whether it's be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not sure. I have not contemplated in a serious way. But I find that's quite a lot to ask, even though it would strengthen the Labour, you know, but at the same time, how strong you want them to be, in a sense. Now, you have made certain remarks that the Governor General should have seen the demise of PAM. But don't you think PAM should have seen the demise of PAM as well in this?
Well, he, I believe, was a founder of PAM, a co-founder of PAM.
Look, there was a situation that arises where 7 ministers went to the Governor General.
Six
ministers, to say that they no longer support Dr. Harris, and they would like the Governor General to remove him. And the Governor General say no, right?
By taking it under legal advisement.
Taking legal advice, and then he finally said it's not within his authority. Well, basically, he did not do that, and that opened up the option of going to a general election. Going to a general election presents a lot of different variables and shifting variables here. I believe that is where a lot of thought should have been exercised, because yes, he did not, the vote of no confidence was not forthcoming in a sense, and he made that choice to go to the people. Going to the people present some risk. I thought that from the beginning. And I am here wondering if this was seriously thought through, in a sense, that when you get to the point of going to the people again, what would happen to Pam? I think the dynamics in thinkers did change drastically, and I believe foresight might have revealed that we are dealing with a high-risk situation of losing the government and finding ourselves in the opposition. Because you've been saying a quote all the time, begin nothing before you know where it's going to end, words to that effect, you know? And I think that applies to a lot more individual than the Governor General in this respect. It applies to Sean, it applies to Mark, because I'm not sure that they would have begun anything if they knew they would have found themselves possibly on the opposition bench. I believe once you've gone back to the people, there's a high-risk situation. And I've been saying, look, this is a serious thing we're dealing with here, because I know the CCM can win its 3 seats in Nevis, but Nevis loses. And so I always thought that going to a general election would have been a high-risk situation. It's not all over in a sense. I mean, we can, as you say, we can be incorporated into the Labour Party, Labour government. That would, of course, comes with a lot of swallowing of our pride. Nothing is wrong with that. Nothing is wrong with that.
Politics makes strange bedfellows.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. But there's a word called integrity, okay? And politicians usually the leaders of people, okay? And so you got to be mindful. You're not on your own, or they just decide to jump in a bed with anybody, okay? We are the employers, basically. You represent the people, okay? And I think what's been happening a lot, it's about personality. I see that a lot within the past unity, personality clashes, and there's nothing to me that reflects the commitment of the people. The people supported the unity, man, to the fullness, you know. 2020 election, they give them that second mandate, you know. But it doesn't seem like the people came into all this rancor, you know. And I think that, and when we sit around and say politics make, it is true, it does happen. But remember, you're leaders of people, you know. You're like the shepherd, and the people employ you. Okay? So be careful with that. It's not always cool to say that. Okay? I am not sure, to be quite honest, that we're ready to be part of the Labour administration. I'm not sure. Maybe it would be a good thing for us, because there are times we've got to let on our arms. And I think at this point, maybe we should, because I find that we are not very strong. Our bargaining power is not very strong at this point. And we got to face the reality.
Remember our country's motto, country above self.
Country above self.
And the human resource
I think
of the Honourable Mark Brantley.
We need to get serious. The human resource of Honourable Mark Brantley should be first used to move Nevis and to gather the strength that Nevis has, gather the confidence of the people. Nevis come first to Mark Brantley, not no federal nothing. And to be Minister of Aviation or Foreign Ministry. I find Nevis needs undivided attention, brother. Okay? Nevisians need undivided attention here. Okay? And I've been saying this all the time. I feel like we have wasted 7 years or 5 years. How many years we've been messing around? I feel like we have wasted years, because I feel like we are back where we were 2015. This is a very serious thing happening, and we cannot we as people who understand it tend to hide the reality of the present situation from everyday people, because they will never react the way the real situation demands of them to react. Okay? And so it is for Nevis and Nevis people. We are not in a good position federally at this point. Mr. Stanley.
I subscribe to the notion that politics makes strange bedfellows. You can still have your integrity. You can still stick to your policy. You think the Labour Party's policy is that different to the PAM's policy? Not that. Is not a big difference between the two,
Yeah, but
in terms of execution and so on. I mean, the difference is execution of the policies. But based on the amalgamation of the policies, they're not foreign to one another.
But no, but look, the people of
And
Sinkis
I'm
have
saying to
spoken,
you-
you know.
Well,
The people of Sinkis have spoken clear. They went and asked them to give us all 8. Why? Because they do not want the interference of Nevis. That's the word, interference. Okay? Not participation, interference of Nevis.
well, I'm not 100% sure that you're correct,
I
because
think
we are one people, one nation, one destiny, and we are heading supposedly upward and onward, and no one man has any monopoly on brain and intelligence. In this regard, I would say the human resource demonstrated by the Honorable Mark Grantley in the Foreign Ministry, specifically with the CBI, it is not a bad idea for us to be given a certain amount of power to be executed to ensure that we keep the engine of growth, the CBI, to continue to propel Nevis and Sinkits financially buoyant into the 22nd century. What is so hard to envision something like that? It's not difficult.
it's not difficult at all. We can dream, we can fantasize. It's okay. But what is reality is saying? What is reality saying?
The people of the Labour Party are not from Mars, and we, the CCM, or the NRP, as the case might be, are not from Venus. And therefore, as human beings, there are ideas that would come forth, and we have to begin to make comparisons of these ideas and see how practically workable they are. A pragmatic approach is what I'm thinking regarding the upward and forward movement of Sinkit and Nevis, financially or economically, politically, less rancorous, socially, harmoniously. So in that regard, a pragmatic approach would bring the two parties together and ultimately make the nation of St. Kitts Nevis the envy of the world. What is wrong about that? Sure, we can see men with divisive ideas, divisive practices, and consequently, it just played out in the last election or prior to the last election. The last election, which occurred on August 5th, culminated into a new parliamentary makeup, federal parliamentary makeup.
Your ambition, you're very ambitious.
Well, for me,
You're very ambitious.
I might
Which is good.
be a peacemaker, and what is wrong about bringing peace to our nation? We all, as citizens, must bring our ideas to the table, and whatever good ideas come to the table, they should be utilized. They should be accommodated, and they should be appreciated. In my view, we are one people, again, with one destiny. And that destiny is to make St. Kitts Nevis a better place for the inhabitants and residents of our Twin Island nation. We can't ask for more. Unity. Less rancorous. Unity brings about less rancor. And with less rancor, we can more lazily focused on the task of governance at hand. And the task of governance is a mammoth one. It's a heavy task, but it must be carried with some degree of buoyancy, meaning many hands make work light. More people we have bringing their ideas to the table, being part of the round table, being part of the apparatus in terms of governance, makes it much easier for our nation to survive and prosper. Hence, that is my recommendation. Reach out to the best human resources our nation can offer.
So you're proposing a government of national unity?
Quite so.
Labour no one, are you?
Simply because
Labour do not want no unity with you guys. Okay? We just had a unity and you have embarrassed the whole nation of St. Kitts Nevis. The consequence of internal wrangling and whatever it was, it turned out to be very hurtful to the electorate. Now the electorate have spoken, more so in St. Kitts. Straight up. Straight up. If I was a Kittitian born in St. Kitts, I would have fought for Labour. I would have asked, please, not to involve no one else. Because of the past experience, recent past.
but at this,
Okay? The personalities, they still exist. They're still around that participate in the debacle. I don't see why the people, the members of the Labour Party might have different ideas, but if you ask the average individual in St. Kitts, they tell you to keep them out.
But they're the leaders, and they must lead the people. Moses led the people from
Well, you see the people
Egypt.
employing, that's the problem you guys have, and that's why no one is leading the people of Nevis. Nevis, I've made the point. Around the world, I've looked around, and I don't see it no way where the population of an island, of a place, have certain aspiration, okay, politically, to separate from St. Kitts. And our leaders now respond to that, 60-something%. Now they're not responding to it. Why? I want a revolution. You want to be overthrown, and we go our own way. This is a sensitive part. It's a sensitive thing.
But there are consequences.
There are consequences, yes.
Do you know?
What I'm encouraging is the conversation. It's the conversation. Speak about it. Speak about it. Okay, speak about it. That's what I'm encouraging.
At the same time,
Okay?
the conversation could evolve into action. Do you know that
Hopefully that's what I want.
if Nevis gets its way, based on what you are propelling and proposing, the waters of,
I never hear such ludicrous.
that is how
Fallacy.
the United Nations have already put things.
Okay, let them take up the water. If that's what they want.
The water
Come on, man.
would be just at the breaking waves
We can't go to the beach.
on the beach, on the sand.
Oh, that's
That's
absolutely.
the territorial water which would be given to St. Kitts.
Because there isn't a place called Nevis, right?
There is a place called Nevis, but Nevis is the one that is proposing to break away from St. Kitts. And
so all the
that is
water
part of the
exists-
consequence.
So, yeah. I can't believe you.
Well, you can't believe it, but it
Well,
is in a
No, I
document.
don't believe it. But what I
in
can't
a
believe
document.
is that somebody like you who is adapting such foolishness as an impediment for us to go
No, no.
forward, as one of the impediments.
That is only
You know?
one, but there's no guarantee.
I guarantee.
There's no guarantee. Don't misunderstand me.
What guarantee?
If
What?
push comes to shove, I just might be on your bandwagon, but not yet. We have to save the baby and the bathwater. And in my view,
Well, let's take it to the bridge.
what we need is togetherness, a government of national unity.
We had that the other day.
It didn't work, and it couldn't work simply because one man scuttled the whole thing.
Well, the other one's going to be
Dr.
made up of
Timothy
men
Harris.
as well.
He had all the levers of government. And as a result, he did not see why he should give Mark and the other Lindsey Grant, who did a fantastic job in tourism ministry, and other PAM people, PAM ministers. We recognize that the Bastille High School was there to be done, and that was put on the back burner. The water for Kayan people, that was there, and it was put on the back burner until this kangaroo cabinet that he put together allowed him to bring from the back burner to the front burner the issue of the Bastille High School, the issue of the water in Kayan, the national insurance bill. But all those are things that should have been brought to the fore and be implemented and brought to fruition.
Well,
But because of
it was in
his selfishness,
the second year of the second term. I mean, maybe if he went on for the third, fourth year, such things might have been accomplished.
Listen, all I could say again, I would be repetitious, but I'll say it again. The former Prime Minister, Timothy Harris, has had an enormous amount of power, economic, political, and social. And he did a good job in many areas. But at the same time, all that power that he had just evaporated overnight, simply because he didn't understand his true role as a leader. You must lead your people onto greener pastures, not onto a role of destruction. But you know who has gotten destroyed in the process? Himself and his party. The nation has not gone with him. At the same time, he was able to take Palm down the road of destruction. Him and the Governor General. So where we are right now, we must attempt to pick up the pieces, bring all the productive human resource to have an impactful effect on our nation and its future. The people are waiting for this delivery. We do not know how they're going to deliver. But we are at this crossroads where we are appealing to them from the microphone of our radio to begin to operate in an equitable manner.
Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, you're on the air, could you go ahead?
Okay, I have been listening to the argument or the discussion between Naya and the other gentleman. And it appears to me like the other gentleman is in Falalala land. Yes, it appears like he's in Falalala land because he's talking all kind of hypothetical situation. Naya, you can see, is more realistic with his rationale, right? Everything that Nevis needed to advance themselves was present in the previous administration, right? That was a unity team, and I believe that if Mark took advantage of that opportunity, right, he would have been in a better place. It seems like everybody's missing the equation and missing the point, right? In my opinion, Mark is the one who created all what has happened in Team Unity, right? With his fair share. Because if you recognize that Sean initially, right, was talking about fair share, right? But he had an opportunity to get fair share for Nevis had he sit down and walk with whoever, the Prime Minister, to bring the legislation, the relevant legislation to bear for Nevis, right? I mean, I don't believe that they think through and they anticipated what has now happened. Because look at it. They look like three blind mice coming down here to sink it. In opposition, that is not a reinforced position for Nevis, because Nevis is out of the limelight now. The best opportunity that Nevis had, right, was given in the hands of Mark and the other two persons who came down here, because they had a super majority, 9 out of 11, right, and they could have sat down and brought the requisite legislation if they were patient, if they didn't allow their ego to get the better of them, and if they didn't think about themselves, because obviously they weren't thinking about Nevis or the people of Nevis. They were thinking about themselves, right? Because if you go inside the, as Naya say, to serve people, then you must restrain yourself. You must temper your ego, right? In order to serve the people. You're gone there as servants. And that is badly missing. I mean, Edric can stay over there talking about Timothy Harris and Timothy this. But the essence of what took place was the undermining of the team unity by Mark. You have to face it, right? His talk was facial, and then later on, it's about a cancer that he wanted to get rid of. Maybe he's an oncologist, right? So he wanted to get rid of a cancer in St. Kitts. There was no cancer in St. Kitts, right? Or if there were cancer in St. Kitts, he was the cancer in St. Kitts, right? The point is, the best opportunity that they had, and that they would ever have in the next 30 years, he squandered. And let us lay the blame at the feet of the person you should lay the blame at. Mark is the person you should lay the blame at, because he deceived Sean the same way. He deceived the people of Nevis and went back with fair share talk. But if people were thinking, they would not have brought him back again, the tree. But the people of Nevis, you all must wake up and recognize what is happening to you all, because I believe he put a blinder on you all talking about fair share crap. Right? He had the opportunity. He's a lawyer. He's a renowned lawyer. And I bet he would not have treated his own business like that. He liked to boast and brag about himself and being a good lawyer. Look at how he did. Being a lawyer, he sent a letter to the Governor General without a date. Right? So that is the best you can get from a man
okay,
who always, pride himself as a renowned lawyer.
Okay, caller.
Yes, that is what I want to say.
Okay,
and so I can't say more, but I will finish for now.
Yeah, but hello.
Yes, go ahead.
You said, you begin by saying that one of the gentlemen here is in Falalalaland?
Yes.
Based on the points that they were making?
No, not Naya, the other one. He's living in Falalalaland because...
Right, work with me.
No, I'm working with you.
Right, so I'm just asking just for to make sure I got it. You said one of the gentlemen was in Falalalaland. Yes. Was in Falalalaland.
He is in Falalalaland.
Okay,
he's
so
in Fantasyland.
Hello.
He's in a dream.
Hello.
Go ahead.
This is how I operate. Right? You notice that you spoke uninterrupted? You realize that?
Webbo, you too, right? You don't call a spade a spade. I've listened to you for years, and you don't call a spade, but you subtly, right? Support who you have to support. All of you all get fooled by Mark, right? And you're one too. And that's what I have to say.
Well, why do people don't want me to talk? Well, let me go to Naya, because he likes Naya. He says Naya is cool. So Naya, work with me. So Naya, why do people don't want me to talk? What do you think?
Well, Webbo, if you
come to the microphone.
If you're in a race with an individual and he just might win the race, you wouldn't mind if he have a slight injury.
Okay, I got you. Well, good evening. Thank you for holding.
Hi, Webbo. Good night. Your caller. Well, I'm not really attacking them. They sound very bright, but they're disrespectful too. Mr. Brantley being mentioned over the months. They've been trying to get an audience with the former Prime Minister, and you are saying they did nothing. Lord. Why is everybody trying to kill Mark and nobody trying to kill the former Prime Minister? When I say kill mine, I don't mean by death, but they're attacking Mark and not the former Prime Minister. They're attacking Sean and not the former Prime Minister.
Right, but
he who caused this problem now, he who caused us where he is today. I mean, nobody looking at that. Nobody looking at that, and like Stanley said earlier, the GG and the AG and the rest of them who was big time stalwart, who got us where we is today. And said they was found out some hypocrite. And I'm talking with no water in the mouth. All of them is hypocrite. That's all I want to say about thanks.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I think, and Mr. Stanley wants to get back in. So I think what I'll do, I'll just keep listening until maybe everybody's exhausted, and then maybe I'll get a chance to say what I wanted to say. Somebody else is on the line. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Herbert, I just want to say that in terms of having an audience with the former Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister did have an audience with Mr. Brantley and Mr. Richards. The only thing is that the former Prime Minister, he didn't give in to the demand. That is all I have to say.
Okay. All right. Mr. Stanley?
I would invite the caller, third back, the one who called in and gave me his props and attempted to say I'm in La La Land, for him to listen to the former Prime Minister, Dr. Kennedy Simmons' speech, and he would ascertain from that speech if he has the intellect and the fairness to truly understand what that speech and its recitation had to offer. And the former Prime Minister has offered two salient points as to why Dr. Timothy Harris was supposed to be blamed for the downfall or the end result of this election. I hope he would have the opportunity to find the speech, listen to it attentively. It's about 45 minutes long, but it was clearly laid out by the former Prime Minister, Dr. Kennedy Simmons, as to why we are where we are now. He, for some reason, doesn't understand that Mark, from day one, has been asking the former Prime Minister, Timothy Harris, for a meeting which he had, but at every juncture, there was a reason why he could not accept the demands. The second caller after him was correct. The Honorable Mark Brantley had several meetings with the former Prime Minister, but he had a hidden agenda to hoodwink everybody else, because he wanted, one, to go on and rebuild and build his party to the extent where by the time the end of the second term occurred, he would have been in a position which he hoped that would give him enough clout, firepower, to win enough seats to demand a third term. In the Charlestown Accord, it was agreed that he would serve 2 terms. But because he had a hidden agenda, and because he had lust for power, he just come up with one red herring after the next and kicked the can down the road. As a result, the Premier of Nevis and Sean Richards and 4 others went to the GG and presented their case to the GG. The judge said I would have to take this under legal advisement. But the judge was part of the plot to help the former Prime Minister, Prime Minister Harris, to go on to the end of his second term and to give him the opportunity to build his party. It couldn't work because it was a hidden agenda. So if the fellow who called in, who told me I'm in La La Land, I've never been there. Although it might be a beautiful land, however, I don't want to go there. Don't mislabel me. Just listen carefully. My thing as a peacemaker, I'm attempting to say, let's get together. Pick up the most productive people within our nation and keep them in the loop. What is so wrong about that? I'm a pragmatist. I see a problem, I know how to solve it practically. And I'm saying to you, we in St. Kitts and Nevis as a nation, over a long time, we have not had an engine that brought us the kind of profit, gross national profit, gross national product, as the CBI program. And I'm saying, let us bring to the table General Mark Brantley and his skills to continue our growth upward and onward in the CBI program. Now, if the fellow who called in feels that General Mark Brantley has failed the people of Nevis, I don't subscribe to that notion. I know the Honourable Premier has gone to great lengths to serve the people of Nevis in an honest way. At the same time, people who, for whatever reason, see things differently, they can express it. At the same time, we are a nation and we have the ability to trust information that we get, but also verify it. And based on what he's saying, I just gave him an avenue to go to, a place to go to, a person to contact, the former Prime Minister, Dr. Kennedy Simmons, and he gave a sterling bit of information, critical bit of information, impactful bit of information as to who to be blamed for where we are on this 9th day of August. The elections are over. We have a nation to build. And based on that, I'm saying, let us get the best human resources available in our nation for us to continue to build and go forward and upward.
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking that even as we're talking about the problems we had with the team and who had more power, etc., etc., and I'm thinking to myself, when you're in any given situation, the gambler has a creed that they live by. Even if they get all your the whole loot, they never leave you, let you go away empty-handed. They'll always give you something and say, come back, buy a drink. So sometimes I go by the philosophy, not because you are mightier than somebody, and you have the opportunity to take all the time or all the resources, it means that you should do it.
Quite so well.
And what happens is, even in our little discussion here, that is why sometimes I say to everybody, well, let somebody else, let's hear from them too. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
I think that we are concentrating too much on personalities, right? The hard fact is, if the federal government, regardless of who occupies the centers of power in the federal government, if the federal government decides that they are not going to share the proceeds, like let's say from the CBI or any other revenue sharing instrument, Nevis will not get its so-called fair share. And that's an untenable position for Nevis to be in. And that is why I say that we keep kicking this can down the road. What is absolutely necessary now is for negotiations between St. Kitts and Nevis that would involve constitutional reform and set these kinds of things in stone. I know I have said this before and I've been challenged with it, but that is what is required. Anything else is just kicking the can down the road and basically relegating this to the kinds of personalities we have in power in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Caller, I can engage you on that point?
Sure.
Okay. With the point that you're making, what if we, as a precursor, right, get every person who finds themselves in that position who are going to be making the law and so on and so forth? What if we get them to declare what their position is on that particular issue?
Exactly. Well,
right? Get them on the record get them on the record and hold them to that to begin with. Right?
Okay.
What if we do that?
But
and
that would also involve negotiations, wouldn't it?
No, I'm not saying it won't involve negotiations. I'm saying let's do it, in terms of steps. Let's say we are making the document point 1, point 2, point 3. Because, you see, what is happening, and I think you're making a good point, but before we even get there, we want to know what is their position on this particular issue. Do you really feel that Nevis should get any of the CBI monies?
Well, again...
And if you... And if you put it on the record and you say yes, then we go a step further. What will you do to ensure they get it?
But those incremental steps, I don't think, is solving the problem.
No,
essentially...
you're not getting me, The incremental steps are not going to take 10 years, or 5 years. Or 5 months. I'm speaking about making an agreement.
Another accord?
No, you're not.
Making an agreement between who? Is it a legally binding agreement?
Let me ask you this. If you know, what do you think or know to be the position of the current Prime Minister? We know what the position of the past Prime Minister was, and the Prime Minister before, right? Do you know the position of the current Prime Minister as regard to that same issue?
I think he wants to have better relations with Nevis.
No. When I said the same issue, the specific issue that you spoke about.
With the CBI?
Yes.
No,
you don't know his position.
Clear exactly what
right.
he thinks about that.
So the point I'm making is, what if we were to begin by finding out what is his position in it.
But
And
why should it be just him? I'm saying that...
Caller, listen to me.
You have to listen to me too, if you're going to have a discussion.
Okay, let's end the discussion then. Okay? Let's end the discussion because I gave you the opportunity to make the points in them that you're making. You don't want to give me a chance to make my point. So as you say, we privacy is best end the discussion. The point I was trying to make is this. If we have a document of any sort and we all agree on whatever it is based on what we think that we should get to Charlestown and we should go via ABC or this route. It seems to me as if that is my and all of us, that is our desire. It seems as if we all should try and do something so that we can get the goal achieved. From the time you realize that one or two on the team, every point they bring forth seem to be something that is a hurdle or hindrance, you begin to question whether their aim is to really get this thing done. And that is what I'm saying. You first have, because if we go to the same Charleston Accord, there were a number of things in it. And a number of things got done. So, for those things that didn't get done, you ask yourself, why didn't they get done? Did everybody, was everybody on board to get it done? Was there a problem and so on and so on and so forth? And that is what I'm looking at. But every time you get into it, people begin to fall on whether they back this person or don't back this person, etc., etc. So I'm trying to do something without any names. Yes, Naya.
I understand where you're trying to go, Webbo. You're talking about steps going forward, paving the way for at least negotiations that would establish something more concrete, eliminate the doubts. It's a good question to the present PM or those who find themselves in that position. What do you feel about Nevis getting some of the passport money? And then you can move from there. I share what you're on about, Webbo.
Here's an example, Naya, to clarify it. For instance, suppose you and Edric, who ran before, suppose you won, and your view was that Nevis should become independent. You'll get the feeling that you're going to take certain steps that would advance that cause, correct?
Yes.
Because that is what you think. That is, you would like to get that done. On the other hand, if Edric express a contrary view and he gets into that seat, one would perhaps not be surprised if the maneuvers that he makes are maneuvers which will likely impede that procedure, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's exactly the point that I'm making now. You find out the person who gets in that seat, what is their desire? And then, what is the record? What have they done to enhance or impede it? And I think that should give us a good... No? I'm making any sense?
Yes, you're making sense. Webbo, it's getting to the heart of the problem. If you're not achieving what you set out to achieve, a group of men, and we all decide to go forward in achieving an objective, and in the midst of doing that, some are acting in such ways that would, as you said, present a little hurdle here and there. Then it's clear we are not working together on this, I mean, if I ask an individual, what is your opinion about, say, anything. I mean, that the answer would give you that inclination whether or not you're going to further converse with him along that path, or you probably don't have to converse with him anymore because you know from the outset that he's not working with you. Now, if the present Prime Minister say, yes, I think you guys deserve some of the CBI money, then you ask what step you intend to take to ensure this will take place. Right?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's problem solving.
Yeah.
But the games and the tricks that people play and the smarts, right? And then you get emotional and then start to curse people and then say, oh, you believe it isn't. It's not going to think. No, I have no problem with people doing that, right? But there's a time and place for everything. If you're trying to solve a problem, there's different ways to go about it. If you're just going to talk, I have no problem letting people talk for an hour and then say thank you. But if you're trying to see whether or not you can get something and move forward, it's different, yeah.
That's where we at, Webbo. That's where we at. I don't think.
Okay. Now I have a couple of notes here that I brought in that I wanted to look at. As far as the campaign was concerned, it was very interesting, and I wanted to know what the panel thought about the influx and the prevalence of what you call fake news. And I don't know if I should say fake polls, but there were a lot of talk about the polls as well, and whether people trust them, distrust them, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to know what the panel thinks about that whole messaging for the campaign.
Well, for me, Peter Wickham, who's supposed to be a historic person in polls taking, I can only say I heard, let me repeat that, I can only say I heard that they made a prediction that the NRP would win the 3 seats in Nevis. And it turned out to be quite the opposite. Now, was it fake news? Improper messaging? Or a deliberate attempt to mislead people? Because they either knew what the truth was or they didn't know. If they knew, it means that they were deliberately trying to mislead people into thinking that the NRP would have won the 3 seats. If they didn't know, then you can put it in the column of fake news. At the same time, they would learn from this. If, in fact, they made a prediction in that regard, stating that the NRP would win, it is on their record if, in fact, they made such a statement. And ultimately, the predictions in the future must not be trusted.
Well, I personally would, I don't think we could have gone through this exercise without experiencing some kind of fake polls or something like that, fake news, wrong messages. It's a part of today's world, of reaching the people, of misleading the people, of confusing the people. All of this usually put to work during an election. So yes, there was that. And was it impacting or was it effective? It's really difficult to measure. But at one point, I find, one group from a particular political party was very exciting and well hyped, because there was something that said that they're going to win the 3 seats. I am not sure how that play out in terms of their turnout, because if they become too confident, then some may stay home. On another page, they might be well work up and feel so strong that they might come out in the overwhelming numbers, But I would have expected, and there was, false information, fake news, fake polls. Even the most professional pollsters get it wrong sometimes. Even though they have such reputation, they get it wrong sometimes. Sometimes there is no posters at all. We just say something come out on the street, I guess backed by whoever is propelling that particular information for their benefit, and it come on the street, and people tend to yield to it. I don't think it's a heavyweight in these elections right now, Webbo. Polling. I don't think it's a heavyweight at all, because I don't see anybody at work. I don't see anybody doing any survey, really. I just hear these things. I personally don't think it carry a big weight, and if it does, you're not sure how it's going to play out, whether it's going to increase the voters coming out or decrease them.
Now let me get this. I'll come back to you. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Okay, I'm very sorry. Callers, when you call, please talk to us via the telephone and not listen to radio. You're going to get a delay or something like that. So please call back. Now finish up.
Yes, and in an election like this, I do expect, a personality like Dr. Harris, and with a new party, and to get that seated within the minds of the people, I think anything would have been employed. And I think fake news, fake polls, all of that was employed this time.
Well, I hope.
It didn't seem like it worked, though.
This is Thought That Get Results. Conrad Nye Liebert, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Back after these.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Builder's Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builder's Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builder's Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builder's Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938.
Always satisfying. VON Radio, the powerhouse.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Liebert. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. So you said that you didn't think that it worked.
No.
Mm-hmm. But
in this particular election.
Mm-hmm. But it is something, though, that you think we'll have to contend going forward. But you think that, as in this particular case, people were onto it, they sifted through it and all that? That's what you're saying?
Yes, but it's a time when everybody got information. Everybody's getting high on information. It's not like in the past whereby you hear these things coming through and the innocence seems an isolated kind of information, and you tend to yield more or pay more attention to it. We are bombarded by information these days, and so we are very skeptic when it comes to information, what to believe and what to yield to.
And you think also that you use the word bombarded with information. The fact that it comes to my inbox, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm sifting through it. Maybe I'm just
passing it on,
or
yes.
send it. So,
a lot of that.
because I am wondering whether persons are thinking that just because it's out there, it has been consumed.
No, certainly
not necessarily.
No, not necessarily.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
When I go, I still talk about fake poll or fake information. A poll is what it is. It's not really fake. A poll is just a prediction. I remember polls are it's only a sample of the population they're going to call and question, and they make the prediction from that. So he just get prediction wrong. And if you check, he also get the prediction in Grenada wrong.
Right.
He's in losing his touch.
Right, but the question though, when we're asking, and it wasn't to any specific person or organization. We're just wondering whether or not we are living in an era where there are persons and organizations who deliberately concoct certain things for a particular desired result. That's the question we're asking. I mean, Naya did mention a particular, or somebody did mention a particular name or organization, but that wasn't the root of the question I was asking.
But as for the poll, based on who will win, I don't think it was nothing deliberate. I guess he did the survey and made his prediction. He just happened to be wrong.
Mm-hmm. But you understand the point that I'm asking, though?
Yeah.
I'm not. Do you know whether or not there were more than one poll or pollsters?
I don't know. I hear about the one with Peter because I don't know.
Oh, okay.
In the most.
Okay. Well, my understanding is that there were more than one, and that is why I'm asking the generalized question and not to speak specifically about one. Now, I get it. One of the panelists wanted to make reference to one. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, that's the one I heard of, and to be honest,
let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, Mr. Webber, can I touch on the whole thing that you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
I do agree with you, and me and the pollster, they sometimes, they got it wrong. But I remember Peter Wickham saying that, well, Pam wasn't going to make no headway in this election. And then you had this guy from Jamaica, Don Henderson. Don Henderson said it's going to be a straight fight between the two Labour parties. He said Pam is out of it. And I think he had an interview there with the guy, journalist Andre Huey. I listened, to excerpts of it. But even though the two parties, the PLP and Pam, only win one seat, when you look at it, you can say Don Anderson and Mr. Wickham all right because Pam was totally out of it. And when you look at the popular votes, PLP comes second in the election and Pam come a dead third last. Because PLP total 5,000 something, Pam total 4,000 something. And both Don Anderson and Amting, they said that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
In the letting up of that going forward, Webbo, is a lot of that we got to be dealing with going forward. It's just the world today.
Yeah, because everybody understands that information is power.
Yes.
And if you can, send something out there, and the idea is to persuade, and your objective, you get your objective accomplished. And that is why, the debates in terms of you saying something and somebody saying contrary, and then the public or the electorate have to sift through that, and then make a decision accordingly.
Well, these pollsters, are they employed by the various political parties?
Well, I don't know in terms of who hires them. And the other thing I wanted to also mention, because is not just the polls, but other information, because that is also put out there.
Yes. A lot of that I think happened in this election, Webbo. It was that type of election.
Now you come closer to the microphone.
It was that type of election. I think a lot of that did happen. I listened a few meetings and so forth. And even sometimes I just open my phone and things pop up. You know, I mean, the presence was felt of especially the PLP. You know, in all aspect and respect of communication, I suppose they were on the ball, but they still didn't do very well. You know, so it's not always, and I think going forward, as I say, you know, these information, everybody's getting high on information. It's not in isolation, really, and in particular. You know, many times things come to me and I don't pass on, and sometimes I don't even open it, to be quite honest.
The other thing I wanted to mention, another point I wanted to mention quickly also, is that I noted in terms of the register of voters, I noted that there was a report that over 50,000 registered voters for St. Kitts and Nevis. And the breakdown suggested that Nevis had over
12,000.
Over 12,000 voters. And St. Kitts, therefore, over 38,000.
39.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Stanley.
No, go ahead, Will. Go ahead.
Over 38,000 voters. But the interesting thing that I want to point out, Naya, what is it? Let me take this first. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening. Good evening to the panel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, could you go ahead, please?
How are you doing?
Yeah, could you go ahead, please?
Yes, I was listening. I heard that earlier caller, and Mr. Herbert, I heard him said that he was listening to you for quite a while. I just started to listen to you, and I hope I'm not speaking too early, but I find you very level-headed and easy to talk to. But I think he has an ongoing grievance with you, so I don't know what it is. However, as for the poll thing, I don't listen to polls. I don't give it any attention, period. And thank you, I will just keep listening.
Yeah, but before you go, why would anybody have a grievance with a fellow like me who, as we used to say a long time ago, can't even mash hands, wouldn't even hurt an hand? So why would
Say that again?
I was just a light moment. I said, why would anybody have a grievance with a fellow like me who can't even mash hands?
I just started to listen, and I hope I'm not speaking too early, but I find you very level-headed and easy to talk to.
Yeah.
But this guy seems to have something ongoing, because he said, and Webbo there, you're another one, something like that.
Yeah, life is like that. I thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Why a fellow like me wouldn't even hurt an ant? Hello, good evening. Good evening, you're on the air. Sorry. Good evening, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Good evening to you, Mr. Webbo, and good evening to your panel. I am the happiest man in St. Kitts and Nevis today. My dream come true. Get me with Timothy Harris, and I have a government what I need. All the polls and the polls and the polls, well, we get a government we need. It is time for the country to go forward. It is time for the country to heal. It is time for us to now understand the true meaning of unity. I'm not going back over who did what and who did where and who did what. Let us all of us come together now in the real unity. Whoever was I don't care. Whoever was unity, I don't care. Time for us to move forward. And the former Prime Minister, he needs to get all what's for him. Because all what he done to people, I'm not going to go with it in the malice in the heart for him. Whatever for him, because what he has done to me and this country, I want him to get all his accolades. Because God is in control, my brother. I know that I'm going to be sleeping with a good heart. If they are real, I believe with a good heart. No going with nothing in my heart. And I want to say to Timothy, it's a learning for all of them. Stop being your horse, because one day you're going to come down. But even when you come down, you should still be taken care of. That's all I have to say. The people of Nevis, it is of Sinkit. Now it's time to us go forward in love. You guys have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Webbo.
What about the thing that you promised me?
What is that again?
You can't remember?
No, Mr. Webbo.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Have a good night. Yeah, you as well. Okay, thank you. Now, I wanted to ask Naya, what's the last population thereabout that we got of Nevis?
About 12,000.
About 12,000. Yeah. So here's a question for you. If we got a population of 12,000, does it include children, minors, and so on, people under 18?
Yes.
And then we have a population, a voting electorate of 12,000. That's not interesting?
It is very interesting.
Okay. So, but I bet you can explain why. Why is that so? Let me take this while you think about it. Good evening. Thank you for holding. You have a minute.
Yeah, good evening. I'm happy to hear about this poll situation. I heard our Premier's talk that Nevis don't believe in polls. And if there's one thing I agree with him on, is that I remember the first time I happened to be a member of the executive of the CCM earlier, when I think the first posters to Nevis. And I was very upset. I pulled the leader aside and said, well, why are all these posters and paying so much money? I got the impression that he was not in favor of it, but it happened. And the thing about it is, that year in particular, CCM won easily. And the songs that the guys sang here, I think Miko and the other one from Four Wheeler sang songs that rallied around the CCM. And those guys, I don't think were paid anywhere near as much as his posters got. So I think that we don't really need posters, but we seem to be spending a lot of money, not Nevis, but people sending a lot of money for posters. Should be doing what? Just creating something to give these people money? We could do our thing without posters. And I don't know why we continue doing them in Federation. But I'm glad to know that Nevis is not participating in this poster stuff, because I don't think it is benefiting us anyway. I think it's just putting money in these posters' pocket, and they are not really reliable. As we could see what happened in Grenada and St. Lucia, they're wrong.
Okay.
So I'm glad that our Premier is not really believing in the posters.
Okay.
Posters. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So, Naya, what you got for me?
Remember, I'm here storming my mind, and you'd be surprised. And I'm going to disappoint you now because
you can't figure it out.
I can't figure it out.
Well, I am thinking that part of what is happening is that, remember that a lot of Nevisians and Kiddishans live overseas.
Yes.
And so a good percentage of them are registered.
Good.
Right?
Yes.
And that can be part of it. And we are out of time, but another, now that the hype and the election is over, perhaps that we can deal with a lot of different topics, including, who should be allowed to vote, because maybe a year or two ago, or less than that, we almost took off
the foreigners.
The people, the overseas voters, and a lot of people have different views on it, and we have to decide whether or not one or two persons for their own interest should be allowed to make those sort of decisions. And maybe one of the things I was in a conversation somebody was suggesting, as people are talking about even constitutional reform and so on, maybe one of the things that we can do as a people is to decide that certain issues, rather than just allowing the politicians or the party in power to decide on them, maybe they can put it on a referendum and see what the people think concerning it.
Yeah.
Who's got the last word?
Well, I would say that this evening has been very interesting based on what occurred on the 5th of August.
That's the last word. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company.